podcast.
What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that they're just...
By the way, can we stop for a minute? How does he have time to, like, write a book, read all of the Epstein file? Like, how does he have the time to do this, by the way? He's wrote a book. He's reading all of the Epstein files. When's he doing that? He's also a dad, a husband, the vice president. When's he doing that? What is he doing? Is he reading them to the kids at night? Is he reading the Epstein files to the children? Is that the reading material for the household? How exactly does this work? That you're reading the Epstein files every day? Is that odd? Anyway, let's listen here.
What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007. Now, like, again, in our defense, yes, was there some bitching and moaning, and was there some back and forth? Yes. But we eventually collected 6 million documents as part of...
It wasn't 6 million. It wasn't 6 million.
The president, people say the president
that was a
Holocaust
joke.
Documents.
Those of you paying attention, that was a joke about the Holocaust. I'm not saying the Holocaust wasn't 6 million, but what an odd number of documents. J.D. Vance is screaming 6 million. What a strange... All right, continue.
The idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, nope, we're going to release these files. He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, like, do I think there is any... I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence.
Stop it for a minute. He was annoyed that the Democrats were... Can you play that again? That, like...
He absolutely could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, nope, we're going to release these files. He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad.
He was annoyed that the Democrats were accusing him of doing things bad. It was annoying to him. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, the demographic of people that this appeals to or that this works on. I mean, I've met some of them, so I know who they are, and I'm not going to claim that I don't know them. I know some of them intimately. And it's not even J.D. Vance's fault. It is his fault, but it's not his fault that he's like a specifically terrible character. They're all in the mafia. It's just a mafia. It's a mafia family. That's all it is. You just got to go out and you go, well, it's actually, he didn't do anything wrong. I looked at everything myself. He didn't do anything wrong. He was with me the whole night, Your Honor. He couldn't have killed the... So it's just like this guy's in an unenviable position of coming out all over the internet now going, this guy's on a press tour for a book. We're days away from troops on the ground in Iran. The Middle East is a total nightmare. The economy is a nightmare. The Straits of Hormuz, there's going to be like a massive oil crisis soon. And they've given so much money to big tech and AI, the flock cameras, all of this stuff. All of this, they're building a surveillance state with this money. They're building a digital surveillance state with the money. And he's got to do this kind of like, oh, shucks. Isn't it wacky? Joe, isn't it wacky? Isn't it wacky being VP? It's like, it's so wacky. I tell myself all the time. I have to pinch myself. It's crazy. So now, by the way, just to remind everyone what this was here, let's play this clip today about what Epstein was doing. God only knows. And I want to play this clip for people because there is this idea, for whatever reason, that Jeffrey Epstein was like a Gatsby-like figure who surrounded himself with like young, mostly legal-aged women, and though morally questionable, was not a guy that wasn't into pedophile, or nothing he was doing was illegal, or that he wasn't blackmailing anyone, or that he wasn't like working with. I know JD says that thing on Rogan where he's like, yeah, he had relationships with this intelligence agency and that one, and he was all over the map, and I'll go to my death believing there was a greater conspiracy. But basically, what JD is saying is like, we don't plan to do anything about it. We don't plan to flesh out the dimension of whatever, quote, conspiracy there was. We don't want to find these things out. Although we have to concede that there's some real questions to be asked because we know you're all not that retarded. We know that some of you have some level of your brains that are still functioning. Some level of your brains are still functioning. I know that they're soaking in frappuccinos and energy drinks, and you're having strokes on the way to work and everything. The air quality's bad. There's fecal matter in the ocean. We've poisoned you 9 ways till Sunday. Your kids are chewing Adderall. We get it. We know how much we've broken your attention spans and brains. Algorithms corrupt your ability to focus on anything for more than 20 seconds. But still, even in that insane hellscape that we've created, some of you are able to focus, and we can't tell you that there's nothing to see here, which, by the way, we tried 2 months ago. When this whole thing happened, we tried to go out and go, man, nothing to see. Nothing to see here. We were wrong. Sorry. But then we've actually had to, because when the evidence came pouring out, we had to come out and go, no, yeah, this is weird. This is weird. Here is this is 60 Minutes Australia, right? Again, this is not a conspiracy program, not a crazy program, not something that's completely insane that says QAnon, that Joe Biden's a clone and whatever. Ellen DeGeneres has Kuru, that cannibal disease, which would be hilarious if she had it. I've seen no evidence that she has it, but if Ellen DeGeneres died of Kuru, that cannibal disease from eating children, it would be very funny. Obviously not for the children she ate, but for me personally, if I read that and it was from a respectable place, Ellen DeGeneres dies of Kuru, the disease you get from bushmeat. But I'm saying that this is not one of those sites. This is 60 Minutes Australia talking about Jeffrey Epstein, who was engaged in like this weird Dr. Strangelove type of like science experiments and shit in that New Mexico ranch. And I always wondered, I'm like, why don't you hear more about that New Mexico ranch? It's all about that island. And now that island's creepy as fuck. And there was, we know that the island is also probably the source of a lot of like immorality, illegality, evil, monstrous behavior. God only knows. But the ranch in New Mexico is super creepy. They're actually trying to investigate it. And I believe the Trump administration is like trying to like shut it down. The investigation, we could look into that in a second. But again, this ranch in New Mexico, it's in the middle of nowhere. Zorro Ranch. So all of this guy's properties, you would say to yourself, if this guy's just hanging out with 19-year-olds and hotties and he's like a pimp, why does he have these lairs in the middle of nowhere? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, he had a house in Manhattan, he had a townhouse in Manhattan, he had a house in Palm Beach. He was in areas where people were, but he also, in addition to that, has these very isolated, very strange, in the middle of nowhere lairs, like in the middle of New Mexico or an island. And you start saying to yourself, that's interesting. And I wonder what was going on there. And this guy is into some weird stuff. Let's take a listen to this.
Girls.
Tim Dillon going off on JD Vance when he went on Joe Rogan to talk about the Epstein files. I like how Tim still always is careful of what he says because, he doesn't want to disrespect Daddy Rogan. Dillon is in the Rogan sphere, although I love his Rogan impersonation. Yeah, man. But as it comes to the Epstein files, the whole Epstein files thing is weird. Because, people be like, Trump covered it up, right? But Trump did release a bunch of them, which is JD Vance's point, and it's weird that all these guys were like, release the Epstein files, then they get empowered, and then they're like, there's nothing there. You're like, yeah, sure, whatever. However, there is one thing that sticks in my mind about the whole thing. You know, a bunch of people truly only care about the Epstein files because Donald Trump became president again. When he wasn't president, none of them cared about it, which is a true statement. But the thing I always be thinking, if there was anything in there involving Trump that's like real, like, oh my God, we got Trump in the Epstein files, wouldn't Joe Biden, when he was president, just have released him? Or like arrested Trump or something? Like, I'm thinking, remember like the night when Joe Biden like completely tanked during that debate, and then a couple of weeks later he dropped out of the presidential race. One would think, you know, they would have had a meeting in the Oval Office, and one of his people would have said, damn, Joe, I mean, you're going to have to step down, you know, you got dementia, you bombed that debate, Joe's going to have to step down. Hold on, wait a minute. You know those Epstein files we got Trump definitely committing crimes in and stuff? Why don't we just release those and win the election? Like, one would think that would happen if there was anything really in there. So, like, who knows? And, like, the Epstein thing is starting to become a little too perfect. I don't like that, or, you know, ring of PDFs that controlled by the global elite. All the victims seem to be, you know, I hate to say this, but in certain European countries and states would be illegal to date them. Like, I'm not hearing any stories of like 8-year-olds. It's all a little too perfect, if you know what I mean. Almost like it's being used as a scapegoat thing while the real stuff happens. As skull and bones. It's a conspiracy. No. But aside from that, I mean, Tim Dillon looking terrible. Ew. How hungover or what is Tim on while he's doing this? Love the pig, but yeah. Look at him. Ranting and raving and with cold sweats. I love the Holocaust joke he told, though. But, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments.